Welcome back to another action-packed episode of the Deadly Podcast Kung Fu, brought to you by the Villains Man with myself, Justin Raymer, as I attempt to traverse the continuity of Marvel's most prolific martial artist and Iron Fist, Shang-Chi and the White Tiger. If you want to keep up with the podcast, you can do so on social media platforms, Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. If you want to keep myself, Justin Raymer, you can do so over on Twitter, X, and Instagram. Today, we're going to be covering the creator of the Book of the Iron Fist, and I quote, the first Iron Fist, depending on how you take the lore, and as I've mentioned here recently, the screwed up continuity of the Iron Fist lore. We're going to talk about Quan Yaozu here recently with the previews for Marvel's December titles. Issue 4 of the Undead Iron Fist has been teasing the first Iron Fist in quotations, hinting to a confrontation between him and Danny, or whatever this undead martial artist, protector of Kunlun, whatever we're going to call Danny Rand at this time. So here with the books of the Iron Fist I've been covering, I thought it was the perfect opportunity to go ahead and cover him. Now, Quan doesn't have a massive history in the Iron Fist books, or even in Marvel. I don't even know why I would say Marvel. It's only Iron Fist titles. To the date, he has 5 issues. One of them is a 1-page flashback, which I will cover, that helps his origin, and the rest are during the Escape the 8th City arc, which is Immortal Iron Fist 22-23. We skip 24 as we get a solo Iron Fist story with a past Iron Fist. That'll be a Book of the Iron Fist in the future. Then we continue on with issues 25 and 26, with the final issue of Immortal Iron Fist being 27, which ties nothing to the Quan story. Now, the one book that he's referencing that is not in continuity as in current at the time would be Immortal Iron Fist Volume 5, Number 5, and I will touch on that because it is important to the story. Now, we all know at this time of in Marvel that Quan is not the first Iron Fist. Technically, by what we know, he would be the second Iron Fist, because Fan Fei, over 1 million years ago, was the first Iron Fist accidentally, and we'll cover that when we get to her. But as far as we know, she is the only Iron Fist between her story and Quan's, and she was created a whole almost 20 years, 2008 to 2018? That's not 20 years, that's 10 years, what am I saying? So a whole decade after Quan was revealed to be the first Iron Fist, an Immortal Iron Fist. So, and we don't even know if, Danny's probably aware of her by this point, I'm sure. I don't even know why I would say that. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and dive into the brief history of Quan Yaozu, the first Iron Fist. So we're going to jump into Immortal Iron Fist number 23. And I'm just going to read what we have here, the captions, and describe the pages as we go along. Excess leads to moral rot, some seeking higher plateaus of hedonism. To achieve them, some turn to the dark arts. And we just see a old Asian-style painting of Kunlun. In the next page, we see members walking up to maybe the temples up their stairs. Within a generation, the rot had a stranglehold on the supposed holy city. Entire families turned away from the temples and schools. And then we see a man kind of giving a speech to the people. A trickster named Cheng Ming rose to lead, who embraced the darkness. And then we see him using some magical powers. He was able to summon assistance from another plane of existence. And as the people of Kunlun run in the next panel, we see all these dark-colored beings which we know to be demons. Creatures drawn to moral rot like vultures to carrion. And then we see Shao Lao the Undying. The most horrifying of the great creatures was a great dragon. Cheng Ming used it as a weapon against the frightened people of Kunlun, and we see it hovering over people, not really attacking them. But we got this cool, very kaiju-like page as we see the dragon over the city, and it's smoldering, almost from maybe its fiery breath. With the dragon's help, Cheng Ming was able to seize control of the city in a very short time. Hope seemed lost, and then we see a very plain monk, is what I would assume based on the look, Until one day, a young man stepped up to the challenge and, weaponless, approached the dragon in the cave where it laid during its slumber. And as we know, this young man was Quan Yaozu, and he killed Shao-Lao, and at the time of this book was the very first Iron Fist in recorded history. Yeah, I guess that's how we can put that. The very first Iron Fist of recorded Marvel 616 history. And then we're going to jump all the way to another, well, I guess 10 years later, kind of, yeah. With Volume 5 of Iron Fist, we're going to jump into number 5. We have Shu Hu, formerly the One of Kung Lun, who is the final opponent of the Iron Fist. Now going by the Divine Wolf of the House of the Wolf, he tells kind of a different story about how Quan Yaozu came to face Shao-Lao the Undying. I was there at the birth of the Iron Fist, the original Iron Fist, Quan Yaozu. Shao-Lao attacked Kunlun, and it had been decided our champion should face the dragon to protect the people, and we see the two battling. Quan and I were the most skilled fighters in the village. We fought for many hours, pushing each other to our breaking points. In the end, Quan won, if barely. And we see Shu, he's on his back. Quan stands over him, fist raised back. Quan would go on to defeat Shao-Lao as hoped. In victory, he plunged his hands into the dragon's heart and gained its chi. We get this really cool picture of him delivering like an elbow, almost in like practicing the martial arts. In the background, we see him facing Shao-Lao the Undying, becoming the first of a long line of Iron Fist. So, the question here is, given what we know about Quan during the 8th City and what we're about to get into, was the tale that the prisoner told Danny Rand in the 8th City a lie? Or is it some distorted truth? Because there's no mention of that, and obviously we're talking about the changing of continuity. It happens all the time. So, you could say that what Shu mentions takes place before Quan enters the cave to fight Shao-Lao. Now, I'm not saying that's true, but I mean, you could break this up to like, which one of these is the truth, which I would tend to lean more towards Shu in Volume 5, given what he said. And then there still is truth to what we learned in Immortal Iron Fist. We just know that in the tale from Immortal Iron Fist, there is no talk about the two facing each other to fight off the dragon. So you could add that. But then again, when we see this young Quan Yaozu, he has no facial hair. His hair is more pulled back in a, I'm going to assume a bun or a ponytail, given the panel. So this is just recent adding to that lore, or Quan having his tale told, omitted that from Danny Rand, because we know that, and I've mentioned this before, the Immortal Iron Fist is all about the corruption that's taking place in Kunlun over such a long period of time. Quan has the same issues with Kunlun and whatnot. So to me, it would make sense that he would leave out the thing about the one, considering that we know that the one, based on the story in Volume 5 from Shu himself, was once a living man until he was replaced. I will leave everything out with the 8th City. Read that story. Read Volume 5 for Iron Fist. It's really good. I've mentioned here recently, very criminally overlooked in regards to storyline, especially with how much lore and history builds up in regards to Danny Rand and Kunlun itself. So please go read that. The Damnation story at the end, you can skip that. No need for all that. But the whole stuff with Chosen and the invasion of Kunlun and that, yeah, read that. Really good stuff. I really enjoyed that. Criminally underrated. So let's move on to Immortal Iron Fist number 25. And much like I'd read from 23, I'm just going to read the caption dialogues. We see some Kunlun guards going into maybe a portal of some sort. From the unseen pages of the book of the first Iron Fist, a band of explorers from Kunlun, mapping the mortal world, discovered it by accident, and we see them entering this gateway, a gateway leading to an empty, brutal realm, and it looks like a vast swamp. We see some of these men plunging into the water, Later, it would be mockingly referred as the 8th city. Of course, those who mocked this place never saw it with their own eyes. We see someone starting to step back in. That's because the gateway led in one direction, down, and we see the soldiers pull this guy back, these explorers. If you tumbled in, escape was impossible, as those first explorers witnessed. And we see the council at Kunlun led by the UT. But when the surviving explorers returned to Kunlun many years later, the elders considered it a new hope. What if the monsters and demons who had been tormenting Kunlun for years could be banished to this place? Kunlun beseeched the other capital cities of heaven for aid. These cities, knowing that these creatures posed a threat to their own people, lent their weapons. The cobra, the bride, the daughter, the dog, the crane, the orphan. And Kunlun chose me, Quan Yaozu, its iron fist, to lead the charge. The battle to retake Kunlun was bloody, spanning countless days and nights, and we get this really awesome page of Quan overlooking basically their battle. And we see all the immortal weapons fighting off all of these demons. Now we're going to jump back to issue 23 as they talk about escaping and entering the 8th city. We ushered the last of the damned into the city, and we see what looks like the Bride of Nine Spiders and Tiger's beautiful daughter battling. And then prepared to seal the gates forever. And we see where they're using their chi to seal the gates of the 8th city. But after hours of meditation, the gate refused to stay closed. Something was pushing back, and we see Quan looking off into the gate. And this giant, winged-like gargoyle dragon is roaring, and we see just in the foreground and just covered in shadow is Quan. And I've mentioned that this could be this beast that we see in Undead Iron Fist #1 and on the cover. And I realized there was only one way to seal the gates. Now we jump back into Mortal Iron Fist #25, assuming that they've defeated this gargoyle dragon thing. Quan stands before the gates of the 8th city. But at long last, the monsters are trapped in the so-called 8th city, sealed behind a carefully constructed gate. The finest minds of the 7 cities had designed the gate so that only a quorum of immortal weapons could seal it or open it again. We see its energy charging up as more of the damned and the demons start charging through. This was to ensure that no one city would control the gate or abuse it. However, there was a flaw in its design. Some of the demon hordes on the other side were able to push back on the mechanisms, making it impossible to seal. And then we see Quan. He's got his head hung low because he knows what he has to do. To allow the gate to open again would be to risk everything, including the 7 cities. One of us would have to go to the other side to pull it shut permanently. And we see him running away after talking to Fat Cobra. The choice was clear. My city, after all, had been plagued by these monsters, and I would see to it that they would never disturb Kunlun ever again. And we see him, this transition page from the brightness of being out in the snow in the gate into the dark denizens of the 8th city as he's punching the demons with the Iron Fist. This was my destiny. This is what champions do. We see him being raked at as he's roaring in maybe anger and victory. Now began my new life in this hell, and we see him being overran by demons. The monster sees me, the one who damned them to this place. Their torments, never cruel, never ending, and he's doing all he can to survive and fight off these demons, and finally that capturing. I was their plaything. But I knew my actions had not been in vain. Kunlun was free from evil. So I accepted my suffering gladly. Better that I take the pain rather than the innocence of my beloved city. And we see him hanging from hooks that are basically impaled into his wrist. When they saw that I could withstand their physical torments, they tried attacking my mind. We've received ports from Kunlun, says Changming. Spare me your lies, is what Quan says. Changming teases. Your mother misses you. She doesn't understand where you are. My mother's enjoying the blessings of a free Kunlun, unlike you. The villain makes sure he's certain of it. They haven't told her about you. No one in Kunlun knows what you did. He continues to look on at the Iron Fist. Its leaders have taken credit for your accomplishments. They have conveniently buried their champion. Quan doesn't believe it. Do these lies give you comfort? You have no way of knowing what transpires in Kunlun. Chang Ming says, is that so? And then we see the brutality that Quan went through. Over the centuries, by imprisonment, Chang Ming would continue to ply me with these obviously fabricated updates of my mother in Kunlun. Now cursed, how crushed she was that I never returned. How I'd left her a lonely widow. Now she turned to the dark arts herself. And then one day everything changed. I saw a face from my youth, a girl who lived down the path from where I was raised. She couldn't be here, not from my beloved Kunlun, and we see this woman in line with all of these demons and damned souls. She looks terrified as she looks around. I did not understand we had sealed the gate. No one was supposed to be able to enter or leave. We see Chang Ming teasing him. Do you see who you serve, Quan Yaozu? You're the champion of an empire of lies. We move on to Immortal Iron Fist number 26. We see Quan amongst all the damned and the trapped from Kunlun that were sentenced to the 8th city. I thought I had sacrificed myself for the city I loved, but my city had lied. Because even after the battle was over, Kunlun continued to punish its ordinary citizens with exile here. It was, after all, the perfect prison. No way in, no way out. I had fought and sacrificed myself to prevent such corruption. Kunlun should have been freed from fear and tyranny. He looks determined. We see him training all the souls of the damned. I then decided I would free Kunlun once more, no matter what. I began the prisoners' training in secret. I passed along what had been taught to me when I was a child. We would take Kunlun's sacred martial arts and use them against the corrupt leaders. But first we'd use it against our captors. And we see that he leads a rebellion with all of these damned that he has trained from Kunlun against the demons of the 8th city. Finally, he squares off against Chang Ming. Who serves and protects you now, Chang Ming? The villain's in fear. No, impossible. And Iron Fist attacks him. I punished him for his evil deeds, but refused to kill him. He would be my prisoner, my living reminder. He would be forced to know my true story and tell it for all eternity. I was Quan, now I am Chang Ming, and I lead an empire of horror and revulsion and evil, and someday Kunlun and the cities will have to send their weapons to deal with us. And we see him take off the mask, and we see him pick up Chang Ming's mask and put it on and assume the role of the leader of the 8th city. Now obviously he comes in contact with Danny Rand and the immortal weapons of current Marvel continuity at the time. He returns to Earth and eventually to Kunlun. To what? We have no clue. He has not been around since the Escape from the 8th City storyline. Just a flashback in Iron Fist Volume 5, number 5. So, what has he been up to? We don't know. Why is he being teased for the end of the Undead Iron Fist series? We have no clue. So maybe we'll start to learn that between issues 2 and 3 before he shows up. Who knows? We know the immortal weapons are in issue 3, and then clearly we should be getting him in issue 4. But that'll wrap up this book of the Iron Fist for the Deadly Podcast Kung Fu. If you like the podcast, please follow it on social media accounts, Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. If you like my music, check out Rushing Tiger by Kuro over on SoundCloud and YouTube. But most importantly, guys, support your local comic book shops and keep reading comics.